Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the 8th part of the series of tutorial WordPress 101 for beginner developers. Welcome again. In this tutorial, I'm gonna show you how to activate the almighty sidebar. The sidebar is that part of a theme that is, of course, on the side. It's a bar that is on the side. That's why it's called sidebar. Okay, apart from the stupid jokes, the sidebar is a really important part of pretty much every team, especially if you're developing a blog. Having a sidebar gives the users the ability to implement their own widgets and customize the experience as much as possible without writing a single line of code. So let's take a look how to implement this. Before starting though, let's check the current status of our team. If you notice that here's completely different. If you left the lesson number 7 and now you're checking lesson number 8, you see that the team it's actually updated. You will notice that I integrated Bootstrap and the structure is completely different. Look and feel is completely different. If you're confused, don't worry. You can do two things if you want. You can check the previous video, that is the live development session, where while I was answering questions from users and recording my screen, updating the team with Bootstrap and jQuery, and I was updating the HTML markup to style a little bit better the entire team. Or if you don't want to take a look to the previous video, you can easily download the updated code from the GitHub repo. So just check in the description below the video, you can find the link of the GitHub and download the updated markup. So if you updated the markup, you're going to be as the same point as I am, and we can get started. So my goal is creating a sidebar and activate the sidebar. If we access our administration panel and we go into the appearance submenu, you will notice that there's no widgets area. Normally in every team, there's a widgets area where you can access all the widgets that your team have and implement it inside the sidebar. We don't have this section here because we didn't activate any sidebar. If you don't have at least one sidebar or one footer area or whatever, one widget area activated, WordPress will not show this section because you cannot use this section without a specific sidebar. So let's create the sidebar. How are we gonna do it? As usual, we can use our functions.php file. And as usual, we can use a specific function and a specific action to activate our custom sidebar. So let's go at the end of our code and let's duplicate the comment and let's write sidebar functions. Or just a function, because we're gonna use just a function. So let's create a function. As usual, we have, like we did to activate the menus, to like set up or to include the external scripts for CSS and jQuery or custom JavaScript, we have to create a function with a specific unique name, and then with an action, we have to call that function into a specific moment with a specific hook recognized by WordPress. So let's do exactly the same. Let's create a function called awesome underscore widget underscore setup, and no parameters for this function. Here we can call a specific function, a native function of WordPress, to register a new sidebar. That it's basically what we have to do. We have to register a new sidebar. So the new function is called just simply register underscore sidebar. And inside here, we have to implement a bunch of mixed arguments that comes into an array to register a specific unique sidebar that we need to use. So let's open our array. Let's go into another line just to keep it a little bit more organized. So first of all, we have to specify the name of the sidebar. And all the parameters, always remember, because are inside an array, are a string. So always put it as a string. Name it's equal, just call it simply like sidebar, because of course it's a sidebar. We have to specify an ID to just make our sidebar a unique element, and let's call sidebar 1. And the third parameter that I want to use is the class parameter. This parameter is kind of weird because actually WordPress doesn't apply a class to your front-end widget, but applies just to your backend. So in the administration panel, it will apply a class wrapper around the sidebar, around the widget. And if you want to use it, you can use it if you want to customize the sidebar administration experience, but you can also leave it blank or not specifying it at all. It's not like totally necessary. For now, we're going to use it just a custom class, call it custom. And also remember that this is not the class that we will print it in your sidebar, in your widget, but the actual class, it will be sidebar-custom. So every time you specify a class, WordPress will prepend a sidebar name with a dash before your actual class. So always remember that. The fourth parameter is the description. If you want, you can help your users if you have like multiple sidebars and you need to specify or to guide some specific user to know that in this sidebar you can use some specific type of widgets, or this is a footer, or this is the secondary sidebar, or whatever. You can use this parameter to write a custom description. So for now I'm going to use just standard sidebar. Oops. And the last four parameters are kind of the most important parameters, except for name and ID, of course. The last four parameters are before and after widget and before and after title. This parameter gives you the ability to customize completely the markup that the single widget returns when you activate it in the front end. I copied these parameters from the WordPress codex, just so I don't have to write it all and I don't have to be careful to not write a typo and destroy the entire functions.php file. But anyway, they're super simple. Before and after widgets are necessary to specify the markup that will be created around a single widget. So every time you want to change the default markup, you can use these two parameters. And this percentage, these custom variable, are connected to the sprintf PHP function and are connected to the ID and the class of your sidebar. The class changed based on the class that you specify, and the ID changed based on the ID that you specify. So just pretty easy. The after widget is to close. If you open before the widget and a side HTML, you have to close it after the widget, of course. Before and after title are exactly the same, except that they're wrapping the title of your sidebar. So if your sidebar has a custom title called, like, I don't know, newsletters or pages lists, that specific title is going to be wrapped inside an H1 tag with a widget-title class. Just super simple. So now that we specified all the parameters for our register sidebar function, we have to call an add action hook to activate our custom functions, the awesome widget setup. So as usual, we have to call add action. And as I said in the previous lesson, we have to specify two different parameters as a string. The first parameters is when this function has to be called, and the second parameter is the actual function that has to be called. So let's copy the name of our function and paste it in the second parameter. The first parameter now, in the previous lesson, we used the enqueue scripts, the initialization, or the after team setup when I was explaining the team support. In this case, we have to use another moment of our WordPress generation, and it's the specific moment where the widgets are being initialized. So in this case, the action that we have to call is widgets underscore init. And always remember, if you use this action widgets init and you specify a function with inside a specific registration sidebar function, always use this custom function to put all these sidebars and footers, all the other widgets areas that you generate. Always just use just a simple function. You don't have to repeat the entire function and the entire action if you want to generate another sidebar. You can just copy and duplicate the register sidebar hook and change the name and change the ID, and you can leave the markup as it is. Doesn't matter, but just keep it everything inside one single function, so you have to just use one hook to activate as many sidebars as you want. So now save it. Let's open our administration panel. Let's refresh it. And if we go in the appearance submenu, we'll see that we have the widgets area right now. That's amazing because we activated through our register sidebar function. If we click on the widgets area, we can access, of course, the widgets menu, and we see that we have available one sidebar that is currently empty with all the parameters that we specify in our functions.php file. So we have our title and our standard sidebar description. If we access the inspector and we select our sidebar, zoom it, you will notice that the parameters that we specified for the ID and the class are here. So we have our sidebar-1 that is our custom ID, and the custom class that we specify with the prepend of sidebar-part. So as I said, this class appears in the backend. Let's zoom out, close the inspector, and now we can easily drag and drop all the widgets that we want to activate in this specific sidebar. So activate like the search and give the title search to this widget, save it. I want to activate the archive, show post count, save it. And I want to repeat the menu that I use. So custom menu, like menu title, and select the menu, and I want to use the footer menu instead of the main navigation. Save it, close it, and now we built our sidebar as we want. Super nice. Let's go in the front end, refresh the page, and as you can see here, we don't have any sidebar. If we go in the home page, we don't have any sidebar. What's that? Just simply we didn't put the front end markup, we didn't call the sidebar in our template, in our theme. It just activated the backend part of the sidebar. So now we have to implement the sidebar inside our theme. We're going to use the same functions that we used to call the header and call the footer. So if the get underscore header function calls a file called header.php and a get underscore footer calls a footer.php file, because WordPress is really consistent, if we call a function called get underscore sidebar, the function will search for a sidebar.php file. So let's do this. Let's create a new file. Let's call it sidebar.php. Let's open this file and let's create a simple markup to wrap up our widgets area. So let's open a simple div ID. Let's call it sidebar and give it a class like widgets area and close the div. And inside, to print our custom sidebar, we have to call a hook, a specific built-in functions from WordPress that calls our dynamic sidebar. And this function is called dynamic underscore sidebar. And to call it, we have to specify our sidebar ID, the ID that we created, that we wrote when we registered our custom sidebar. So let's open our PHP tags and call the function dynamic sidebar, and inside let's specify as a string always our sidebar ID, that is sidebar dash 1. Save it. Let's go inside the index.php, and before the footer I'm gonna duplicate this and I'm gonna call get sidebar. Save it. Let's open our front end, refresh, and see that we have our sidebar. Our sidebar magically appeared. We have our search, the title. Let's open the inspector and see if the markup reflects all the editing that we did when we register our sidebar area. So we have our aside here. Let me zoom in. We have our aside container with the ID and the classes. We have our h1 tag that wrap our title, and then we have our, of course, widget, the actual widget content. And pretty much that's it. Now, a thing that I want to do is, because I'm using Bootstrap, I can use the column grid of Bootstrap. So I want the sidebar to be actually on the right part of my theme. If I access the blog, you will notice that the blog occupies the entire 100% area, and the sidebar is right underneath before the footer. I actually want a left column with the blog post and the right column with the sidebar. To do that, I have to just wrap these two parts of my template, of my theme page of the index, inside the HTML markup of Bootstrap. So if in the header I already open the container is still open because I closed the row here, I can just call the row and the specific number of column that I want. So let's open our div class row. Here I want div class call XS12. That means that at font size is gonna be 100%, and instead at tablet size and bigger is gonna be called small 8 column, and we close here our blog loop. And the sidebar I want to be, of course, div class call XS12, and on tablet and bigger I want a 4 column. Indent and close the HTML. And of course, close the row div. Let's refresh our page and see we have our blog loop on the left sidebar. If we open the inspector and we check our code, we see that we have our left column with all the blog loop and the right column with the sidebar. If we access the home page, it's gonna have the same structure. And if we access another page, about me or the contact page, it's not gonna have the same structure and doesn't even appear the sidebar. Was that why it's happening? Just simply because during the previous lesson, we created some specific pages for our theme. So if you access the page, you will notice that we have our template, custom template with this is my static title. And if we access the contact, because the contact page is associated to that specific template, we have here that specific markup. So always remember, if you have some custom page for some custom content, you have to recreate, if you want to use it, of course, the same structure that you have in the index for those specific pages. So for example, I have the page 6 that is associated to the page with ID number 6, that in my case is the About Me page, where you can see I have the content on top of the title. If I want also in this page show the sidebar and have the same structure of the rest of the site, I have to just recreate the same markup. So just copy the markup. With the sidebar, save it, refresh the page and see we have now our content of our page, the content of our page on the left bar and the sidebar on the right bar with the same widgets that we activated in our backend and the footer at the bottom. Just super simple. So always remember, if you have custom pages or custom template, always remember, as you always do, as I already told you before, include always the header, the footer, and if you want a specific structure with a sidebar, you have to copy and paste the same markup with the same get sidebar functions. And of course, every time you change something, you apply some changes to the sidebar in the backend, these changes are going to be reflected in your front end because the sidebar is dynamically connected to the sidebar that we activated in the backend. So backend and front end are exactly the same, but this is quite standard of WordPress. I don't have to explain this. And also today's lesson, it's over. I hope you, as usual, I hope you enjoy, I hope you understand how the sidebar works and how you can activate some specific sidebar. And I want to give you a task for the next lesson. And if you have some problem, of course, you can leave a comment below. I will answer everyone. Please try to activate another sidebar or multiple sidebars and implement those specific sidebars inside different pages and different templates. So if you want to, you can try to activate multiple sidebars and integrate those specific sidebars in different parts of your template. As always, thank you so much for checking this video, and if you enjoy, please give it a thumbs up or share it to Facebook, Google+, whatever. I get a notification every time you share it, so I will absolutely give it a like or a +1 or a retweet if you tweeted, because I love when someone shares my video. It's just amazing. And thank you for all your comments and all your feedbacks. I'm stoked. Thank you again, guys, and see you next time.